that says, never forget that a small group of thoughtful, dedicated citizens can change the world. In fact, that's the only thing that ever has. I want to think about that, and I want to talk to you about that in the context of prosecutors. A small group of thoughtful, dedicated people that can change the world. And if you think about it in that context, in the last 35 years, every major innovation, improvement, advancement in the criminal justice system has had at the forefront a prosecutor. In 1989, there was a man named Bud Kramer from Huntsville, Alabama. He was a district attorney, and in this jurisdiction in Alabama, he didn't like what he was seeing with children in sexual assault cases. Children, and as so many of you know who have worked with victims, a victim who has had to repeat their story over and over and over again is traumatized and has to relive that crime over and over again. And it is twice, if not exponentially, more difficult on children. And during that time in 1989, what we were seeing were children having to go to one location for a forensic interview, somewhere else for a sexual assault exam, somewhere else for counseling. All the social services were there, but they were spread out everywhere. Law enforcement, social services, child protective services, counseling was all available, but it wasn't there in a central place for the child. And Mr. Kramer said, that's not right, let's make that better. And he formed that group and brought all those people under the same roof, and now we have child advocacy centers, over 1,000 of them in every state in this country and in 33 other countries. That was the movement of a prosecutor who looked up and said, we can do better. And he did. And that was in 1989. In 2002, as a natural outreach from working with domestic violence victims, and so many of us have that as one of our major crime problems, and probably the biggest problem with domestic violence victims is you hear people say all the time, why doesn't she just leave? And when I say she, if you've read the women's section white paper, you'll know that 85% of the victims of domestic violence are in fact women. But the question is always there, if she's suffering that abuse, why doesn't she leave? And for those of us who have worked and researched in this field for so long, we know that leaving is not an event, it is a process. And in order for them to be able to move on, they have to have that support financially, emotionally, they have to have counseling. They have to have job training. They have to have emergency shelter. All of these services in 2002 were available. But again, they were spread out everywhere, and the victims were having to tell their stories over and over again, if they could even find those services. Out of that, they developed in San Diego a city attorney by the name of Casey Quinn, working with the district attorney's office and a few other dedicated, thoughtful citizens, formed the very first Family Justice Center. A Family Justice Center where all of these services are brought under one roof. And they're all providing all of those services for victims. Prosecution, law enforcement, counseling, all of them. That was an improvement in 2002, and now there are hundreds of those throughout the country in just about every state in this nation. Another advancement, but at the forefront was a prosecutor. But it hasn't always been about just victims. As prosecutors, we have also done the same thing for defendants. Amy Wyrick, you saw her in the video. Amy is very fond of explaining to us that you have to understand that some offenders embrace antisocial behavior, and some of them struggle with it. And as prosecutors, we have recognized that for years, which is why in 1989, a district attorney by the name of Janet Reno in Dade County, Florida, got together with 3 or 4 other dedicated, committed citizens and said, we need to start providing accountability, and along with that accountability comes counseling and the treatment that they need. That, again, was in the 80s. And think about that a minute. That was in the middle of the war on drugs. That was in the middle of the time when everybody in this nation was afraid of the crack epidemic, wondering what was going on with the drugs, how could we stop it? And generally the best answer was incarcerate. And yet we were the ones that said, there's some other things we can do. And because of that now, there are treatment centers, there are treatment courts, drug courts, mental health courts, veterans courts. all of those people that we sent overseas to represent us and to stand up for us. All of those people that came back with mental illnesses that they didn't leave with and are having to cope with. We now have courts to help them as well. All stemming from a small group of dedicated citizens, and with one of the leads being a district attorney. The reason I bring that up is because I think we all know that there's a narrative out there that we don't care, that our job is simply to incarcerate. The narrative that there needs to be a new group of prosecutors or progressive. 2 weeks ago, I had a call from the Washington Post, and they asked me, they said, what are your thoughts about the new progressive prosecutors? And I asked them this, I said, if you're asking me about somebody being progressive, the way I define that is somebody who wants to innovate, somebody who wants to make the system better. Reform? Absolutely. I don't know a single prosecutor that didn't take the helm of their office with the thought, I'm going to make it better than it was. Every prosecutor in this room, every prosecutor I know, has taken over their office and said, I want to make it better, I want to make it more efficient, I want to make it fairer. Everyone. So if, Mr. Washington Post, you're asking me, what do I think about progressive prosecutors? I say thank you. Prosecutors are absolutely progressive. I'm not going to see the title of pioneer, though, because that came many, many years ago, and we're now just a part of that chain of progressive people, thoughtful, committed citizens who decided we can change the world, and we will. That, ladies and gentlemen, to me, is our narrative. We are the voice of America's prosecutors, and that's the voice we ought to have. That's the statement we ought to have. Let's talk about what we have done to make our systems better, and let's truly be the voice of America's prosecutors. But being the voice is not enough. We have to also be agents. We have to be the agents for the prosecutors in all of our offices who are assistants and deputies who are struggling under student loan debt. I have people in my office that are literally scheduled to retire the exact same day that they pay off their last student loan debt. Many of us cannot pay the salaries, obviously, of private practice. And yet these people come to our office because they want to be career prosecutors. They want a career path. Well, it's our job to get it to them. And so one of our initiatives led by Jody Mann, who you heard yesterday, is going to follow up on what President Blodgett started last year with the new recognition of getting Washington to understand that our prosecutors, in order to have true improvement on the opioid issue, in order to have any true improvement in the criminal justice system, you need career prosecutors and you need career public defenders. And this program, which ironically was named after the very first and only other South Carolina prosecutor, who some of you worked with, some of you know, but all of you have heard their name, John Justice from South Carolina. It's his program name, and it's the program that we need to make sure it gets funded. And it gets funded in a meaningful way so our assistants and our deputies can continue to be career prosecutors and make this criminal court system a better system. Many of you have been trained at the National Advocacy Center. Many of you taught at the National Advocacy Center. It was a fantastic facility. And it's gone. It is now under the realm, basically, of the federal government. We will be able to use it periodically, but it will never be the way it was. But here's the good news. The heart of the NAC, the heart of the National Advocacy Center, was not the building. It wasn't the location. For those of you who've been in Columbia, South Carolina in the summer, you'll agree with me. It was not the location. But the heart of it were the training programs that were being put on by the National District Attorneys Association. They were the heart of it were the classes being taught by some of you in this room that are now being organized by Candace Mosley and Nelson's staff. That's the heart. And that can be and should be and will be continued. But my suggestion is this. Instead of trying to figure out how to recreate the NAC, let's do it in our own communities. Let's go out and have regional training facilities. Let's talk to law schools. Let's talk to district attorneys' offices and have them open these training facilities with the idea that they would be a National District Attorneys Association regional training facility. And we get to move our brand throughout the country. And then prosecutors can get to these regional training facilities a lot easier, by the way, than getting to Columbia, South Carolina anyway. But it progresses what the National District Attorney's Office Association does so well. And it does it on a regional scale. I've asked Amy Wyrick to head up that initiative. That was one of the smartest moves I ever made. Within weeks, she had divided the country into 7 regions. She had named regional directors. Many of you are sitting in the room have done that. Sim Gill has already said, me first, I've got one, I'm ready to go. And so by this time next year, I'm hoping to be able to report that we will have regional training facilities under the name of the National District Attorneys Association throughout this country. We may not have the National Advocacy Center, but I think we can have something better. And I hope we'll be able to report that to you next year. My final statement, first of all, I had this really neat story about justice, and they asked me to do some closing remarks last night at the ladies' dinner, and so I used it. So I had to go write some more personal remarks. I started as a prosecutor. I went to law school in 1985 because I wanted to be a prosecutor. I didn't want to be a civil lawyer. Money obviously didn't interest me. I wanted to be a prosecutor, and I've been very fortunate to be able to be a career prosecutor. And my friend Scarlett Wilson from Charleston has mentioned this to me as well. She said, you know, people will come up to me and say, well, what's next? Scarlett tried and handled 2 very high-profile cases, both of which you actually heard about yesterday, and she did a phenomenal job. And people naturally said, well, what's next? And her response is, there is no next. This is the best. I don't want to go anywhere. And that's the way I feel too. And I wonder every day why that is. And I think I have an idea. And I saw Billy West from Fayetteville out there in the hall, and I said, I will bet you I will talk about North Carolina State, because that's where Billy went to, and he loves it. He always wears, red, and he was a golfer there, so don't bet him. But Billy took a bet, so Billy, you owe me money. 1983, the North Carolina State basketball team won the national championship. They beat a team that was much better than them. And in fact, they weren't even supposed to be in the finals, much less win it. And automatically, the most famous person in the world became Jim Valvano. And in 1993, Jim Valvano was receiving an award for the Arthur Ashe Courage Award. And Valvano took the stage, and at that point, he was receiving the Courage Award because he was suffering with cancer, and he was dying. They literally had to help him on the stage, and they had to help him off the stage. And of course, at that speech, he delivered the famous line that everybody repeats, don't give up, don't ever give up. But he said something else that really touched me, and it's something else that I think really defines what being a prosecutor is all about. He said, somebody asked me one day in this condition, what makes a great day? And Valvano said this. He said, 3 things make a great day. Spend your time laughing, spend your time crying, and spend your time in thought. And if you do all 3 of those things every day, if you do them every day, you'll have something special. But if you think about what we do, we are some of the funniest people you've ever been around. Great sense of humor. And maybe that's a coping mechanism, but we're really good at it. And we laugh every day. But we cry every day too. And sometimes those are tears of joy when we put our heart and soul into a trial and the jury says the right thing, and we know it, and we've made a victim feel a little bit better. And we may not have given them closure, but we can at least allow them to move on. And yes, we cry when we stand and we watch the father of a child talk about how he used to coach his son in baseball and even volunteered to referee or umpire, and how he would stop baseball games to help other players bat, even if they were on the other team. His son was killed in a drive-by shooting. He now can't walk past a baseball field. And to see him and to hear him tell that to the judge as he was shaking, you cry. You cry every day. And going back to that question that Amy Ryder posed, do we know the difference between the people who embrace antisocial behavior or those who struggle with it? Every day we are called upon to think. We are called upon to make decisions that are inevitably unpopular ones with somebody. And we don't shy away from that. We look forward to it. We sign up for this position. So ladies and gentlemen, I will leave you with this. I am a career prosecutor and I love being a prosecutor. And I think everyone here understands that. But I would suggest to you that the reason we understand that is because every day we have the privilege of laughing, of crying, and of thinking. And we are a member of a small group of individuals, dedicated citizens, who will change this world. And thank you so much for allowing me to be in this position. Thank you.